Do you guys like my hair today? Is it giving I might kiss my brother later? That's not what I was going for, but it is what I ended up with, so let me know. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Courtney and let's do the mid-year book freakout tag. Just a little pulse check on how this year of reading is going for me. It's going amazing. I'm having a great time. I've read so many books, 53 or 54 books. I'm very impressed with that number, given that last year I read 43 and I've already beat that, and it is the end of June. You'll see throughout my book choices today that things have kind of taken a turn in a direction that I personally wasn't expecting. I'm very excited about the way things are turning out for me this year and kind of the new direction that my reading is taking. Now, if you watched my book tag from about a month ago now, I'm going to do my best to have these be different books than the ones you already saw, and I'm only going to be talking about books that I've read in 2023 because otherwise you can't really count on recommendations from books you read a long time ago if you read a lot of books. The first question is, what is your favorite book that you've read this year? And first of all, I would like to say that question is unfair. If you were expecting one book, you were sorely mistaken. I do have 4. I'm going to talk about 3 because the 4th one answers the next question. The first book that I would say is my favorite is By a Thread by Lucy Score. That is my only true romance that is on my best books of 2023. This book covers Dom and Allie. We're gonna call her Allie. Dom and Allie and their kind of hate to love relationship. It is a big book. It's an adult book. Lots of sexual tension in that one. It had me in its clutches. I was not putting that book down. Any free time that I had was devoted to it. I stand by that to this day, that if that book is in front of me, I will be reading it. There's like magic in those pages. I recommend that one if you're into romance and you haven't read it yet. My next favorite book of the year was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is where I realized that I've lent out a lot of my favorite books. My sister has this one. She's reading it. She also loves it. Project Hail Mary covers Ryland Grace, who wakes up to discover that he's on a little bit of a solo mission to save the world. And he's putting back the pieces together of his life, how he ended up on the spaceship, and what he can do to save Earth and the world as we know it. There's a lot of banter, even though you're only really getting one person's point of view. There's a lot of twists in this book. Probably the final third, I was crying a lot. It took me by surprise. That was the first book I started to think, wow, maybe I don't only love romance. If you haven't read it, it is so hyped. It's so deserving of the hype, and you definitely should read it if you haven't yet. Last but certainly not least, of my favorite books of the year so far, Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I adored this book, and I would say Ready Player One and Project Hail Mary shifted the trajectory of my reading moving forward. These 2 books together showed me that I'm not just a romance girl, that I can do science fiction, that I might be into fantasy a little bit. After reading these 2 books, it has been harder for romance books to get a 5-star from me. It's just not enough anymore. So this book covers a dystopian future where real life is essentially lived online in a virtual reality called the Oasis. There is an Easter egg in the Oasis where the finder of this Easter egg win all of the riches from the man who created the Oasis. It follows Wade Watts as he attempts to find that Easter egg, and kind of a ragtag group of misfits who are all trying to get to the Easter egg first. This book has action and excitement and a lot of video game references. If you're into video game culture, I think you'll love this. If you're into sci-fi, I think you'll love this. If you just enjoy a good book, I think you'll love this. I wasn't the target demographic for this book, and I absolutely loved it, and it shifted what I expect from my books moving forward. So I would say that this definitely has to be on my best reads of the year list. The next question is, what is the best sequel that you've read in 2023 Fury. I haven't really read a lot of series up to this point. There's only 2 that I've read this year, and I would be remiss if I did not mention my newfound love for the ACOTAR series. I did bring up A Court of Thorns and Roses, but this is not the sequel that I'm talking about. I'm talking about none other than A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. When I talk about the trajectory of my reading changing this year, it was like a 1, 2, 3, and now I'm on a different path sort of situation. Project Hail Mary, Ready Player One, and A Court of Mist and Fury has fundamentally shifted my reading interests at this point in time. I am a romantasy girly. Everything else is still good. I'm still reading romance and I'm still loving it, but I have not had a 5-star romance since Ready Player One, and since A Court of Mist and Fury, all I've wanted to read is other romance fantasy books. So this is not the sequel, this is the first one because I don't have the physical copies yet. The books follow a fae human world where we're getting to follow this woman named Feyre. She's pulled into the fairy world just as the fairy human conflict reaches a head point. A Court of Mist and Fury is my favorite book. It is a 5-star read for me, and it really just put me in the mood to hang out with a bunch of people in worlds that are made up, you know? Not that all books don't have made up worlds, but I just want to hang out with some fairies, and I'm so embarrassed and honored to be saying that. Next up, a new release that you haven't read but want to. This has to be none other than Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This book is taking the internet by storm, and I will be hopping into that storm, okay? I want to read about dragons. That's all I know. I know the main girl's name is Violet. I think it's like an enemies to lovers situation. I'm going book shopping hopefully in the next couple of days, and I hope to find a physical copy of it, but I know that it's like nearly impossible to find one right now. So I might resort to my Kindle here soon. That is definitely a new release that I haven't read that I really want to. My most anticipated release for the second half of the year is a new book by my favorite author, Vari McFarlane. Vari McFarlane is a Scottish author who writes women's literary fiction, chick lit, contemporary romance, all up in that genre. And she has a new book coming out in August called Between Us, and I'm so excited about it. What I found out for myself this year is that I'm really into British books. She's not British, she's Scottish. I'm really into that sort of humor. American authors just aren't doing it for me right now. I cannot wait for Between Us by Vari McFarlane. My biggest surprise of the year has to be The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. This is a book that I've had on my shelf for the last year. The cover is so cute and the humor is so British. It's not hitting you over the head with like American style banter and sarcasm. The Flat Share is about Tiffy, who has gotten herself into a little bit of a situation where her relationship has ended, she has no money, and she needs somewhere to stay. Enter a flat share agreement with Leon. This isn't like your normal let's be roommate situation. This is like we're going to be bedmates. I work nights, you work days, we'll sleep in the same bed at different times kind of situation. Tiffy and Leon enter into this agreement. They aren't going to meet each other because Leon works nights, Tiffy works days, but then they start leaving each other post-it notes throughout the house, throughout the apartment. And this story is equal parts cute and also it gets a little bit heavy. And I think that the way that Beth O'Leary navigates the heavier topics that she covers in this book, as well as the lightness and just like feel good romance, I loved this book. It took me by surprise. A new favorite author of mine this year has to be Talia Hibbert. I have her 2 books here, Act Your Age, Eve Brown, and Take a Hit, Danny Brown. I do have Get a Life, Chloe Brown, but that's also on loan to one of my friends. I was a little bit hesitant to read Talia Hibbert's books. I don't know why, because I can be an idiot sometimes, but these books are very British, very cute, and pretty spicy for what you're getting in here. These books basically cover a set of sisters, 3 sisters who are trying to do the things that the titles imply. So Act Your Age, Take a Hint, Get a Life, and it's just the 3 Brown sisters, Chloe, Eve, and Danny, as they navigate their mid to late 20s, and they end up finding these lovely men. They're just a really good time, and I'm excited for her next adult release. The next question is a book that made you cry, and I just have to highlight Really Good, actually, by Monica Hasey. This book is a little bit plotless, but not pointless, and it follows Maggie through her first year and a half of her divorce. But there is a chapter near the end of this book that honestly I just sobbed through. Let me see if I can find it. In this book, basically every chapter or every other chapter is like a very short mixed media sort of chapter. So she has one that's Google searches, she has a like emotionally devastating things people have said to me chapter, and the one that just made me sob is called Journaling Exercise Self-Knowledge, and it's just like a chapter of her just what she wants out of life, and it's so silly and it's so sweet. It's silly things like, I want to feel calm, I want a signature scent, I want to be the kind of woman who whips up a galette, I want to enjoy stretching, I want to mean it when I tell someone no worries, I want to be good at sports, or at least a good sport, I want a partner who thinks my best qualities are the real me and my worst qualities are manageable, I don't want to date someone who thinks I'm only okay, I want to love easily, I want to be gentler, I don't want to drink so much, I want to be open and non-judgmental and warm, I want to look pretty with my hair wet. It's just a whole chapter of things like that. By that point in the book, I was just in love with Maggie, but I don't know if this book is going to be for everybody, but I think it's really going to work for the people that it works for. This book made me cry, I loved it, and I can't wait to read more from this author. The next question is, who is a fictional crush from 2023? And besides some characters written into the Agatar series, I have a couple. I can't talk about that book all the time or that series all the time, so I'm going to pretend like it is not my whole personality right now. I really loved Noah from In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. He is this broody, grumpy, sassy dude who ends up being a little bit spicier than you're expecting him to be at the beginning of the book. He is like a good old country boy at the same time as like a very savvy businessman, and I was just into it. I was like, you go, Noah, you take care of our girl Shay. He's such a good guy. If you haven't read In a Jam by Kate Canterbury, I highly recommend it. A small town romance, very cute, pretty steamy, very into Noah. The next question is a book that made you happy, and I have to talk about the little romp that was It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This book is just fun. It's so fun. It's nothing. It's Schitt's Creek if Alexis Rose had ended up with whatever his name was, Moose? Dog? What was the first guy? Mutt. Oh my God, Mutt. It's just fun. It's just a fun time, a fun, silly little time about a valley girl who gets, she gets sent away. Girl bossed a little too close to the sun on daddy's budget and ended up in a small town. Piper, she goes there with her sister because she has been banished, and she ends up meeting Brendan, who is a sassy, salty sea captain. If you were looking for a good time, maybe if you're in a book slump and you're okay with maybe like a 3 out of 5 spice factor, it's a little bit spicier than something like a Emily Henry book, then I would say definitely give It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey a try. It's one of those books that you're just like giggling about when you're reading, you know? Okay, the next question is the most beautiful book that you've received this year or bought this year. And I would say The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary, but I actually want to talk about The Reunion by Megan Quinn. I listened to this book on Audible. I didn't actually love this book, but I think the cover was beautiful. I think I owe Megan Quinn an apology. I think that listening to her books on audio is a disservice to the way that she writes. I think I'm gonna start reading her books physically because the audiobooks are just not doing it for me. And my best friend is reading a Megan Quinn book and she's really liking it. And I think that the banter needs to be read with your own eyes. I need to be able to make the inflections that I choose to make. I think I've just come to realize that audiobooks have to be really great for me to love the books. And I think that that's unfair to a lot of books. So Megan Quinn, I'm very sorry. Please accept my humble apologies. I promise to read your books physically from now on because I think that I'll enjoy them more. The Reunion is a beautiful cover book. And finally, what books would you like to read before the end of the year? I'm in a series mood. I am ready to read a bunch of series. I brought a couple up with me. I brought Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I brought Crescent City up by Sarah J. Maas. I just want to be invested in these worlds. I'm moving in a fantasy romance direction. That's where my interest lies, because you can just do so much more with it than you can with romance books. On top of reading more series, I would love to read a couple more Stephen King books, just expanding my reading palette. I can't wait to see what I get up to by the end of the year. It has been a great reading year so far. I've just been loving it. I love that my interests have kind of changed, and it's just fun to be able to talk about them with you all. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.